Good afternoon, everybody. It is 11:30, so I am going to turn this meeting over to Diana Aguirre Martinez, who is our past chair. Our chair is out for this meeting, and our vice chair has no voice, unfortunately, but he is here. So we are going to lean on our past chair to run our meeting.
Good morning, everyone. Kind of feel like that part in Godfather 3 where he tries to get out and they wheel you back in. So here I am. Anyway, good morning. Thank you for attending our April 9th meeting. We officially call this meeting to order. I'm going to turn this over to staff so they can do the roll call.
Velma?
Richard Farias, Lawson Picasso, Diana Martinez, Frank Gonzalez, Julian Villarreal, Adelita Cantu, John Kelly, Tom Corser, Vanessa Alvarado, Maria Nelson, Audra Clapsaddle, Stephen Bonnet, Bob Zapata, Aaron Stein, Christopher Fullerton, Sarah Villarreal, Frank Dunn, and Peter Onfre.
Onofre.
Okay, is that a total of what, 10 if I count it? 11. Okay, we do have 11 members in attendance, so we've verified that we do have a quorum. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to the staff. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance first.
Do you want to do
Nancy Tabares is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Then we're going to turn it over to the invocation, and after that will be the safety message. Thank you.
If we could bow our heads. We come before you today to give you honor and praise. Thank you for every gift that we have been given. We thank you for the opportunity to come and gather together this day. We ask for your hand of blessing on this meeting of the CPS Energy Community Input Committee. We ask that you guide and direct our meetings so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals this day. Amen. We'll turn it over for a safety message.
Okay, Nancy Tabares is going to lead our safety protocol.
Thank you very much. This is going to be a safety tailboard. As everyone knows, today we are here at 500 McCullough Avenue. In the event of emergency, Mrs. Velma Corona will be dialing 911. Who would direct the emergency responders? That would be me. I would also be doing the AED as well as the CPR. Matthew Jones, our director, will be handling the fire extinguisher. Please look around you for present hazards, for wires, plugs, personal belongings, chairs. Please keep notice of all exits. You have 2 in the back, 1 in the front, and they are all highlighted in red. Thank you and have a safe day.
Thank you, staff. I now open the floor to public comments. I turn the meeting order over to Christina, our manager of local government relations.
Thank you, past chair. Public comment provides the opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on posted agenda items for this meeting. We will invite pre-registered and registered this morning speakers to speak and address the committee on CPS-related business listed on the posted agenda. Speakers should state their first and last name, the organization they are with, if there is one, and the agenda item on which they will speak. For this meeting, we have 2 in-person speakers. Each person will receive 2 minutes to speak. William, will you start the timer? Our first speaker is Erica Alvarado. Is it Alvarado? And our second speaker is Alex Peña. So, Mr. Peña, if you'll be ready to speak next.
Hi, my name is Eric Alvarado. I work with Southwest Workers Union. I'm also a part of Climate Justice San Antonio. I live and work in District 2. I believe that's Quadrant 3. I just wanted to say I think the Community Input Committee subcommittee meeting should be made public. Municipal-owned company, the public should have, access to that information. I also wanted to talk about the District 2 representative on the board here does not live in District 2. I believe they should live in District 2 if they're going to represent us. That's all I had to ask. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I was just going to pass it. There you go.
They reset the clock for you, Mr. Penn.
Thank you. Hello, good morning. My name is Alex Pena. I live and work in D7. I am with Southwest Workers Union as well, and I am also asking for the subcommittee meetings to be open. I think it's important considering the subject matter, corporate presentations, and also the types of materials that are being discussed in these meetings to be public. I think that especially considering the chair's position, although not present, on the finance subcommittee and the topics delved into there should be made especially public to people that have the most concern of it. There's a big concern from people in our community about disconnections, about AI data servers, about super large consumers that are coming to our city. And while these finances are up in the air, while discretionary funding is being put forward, it is important for us to remember that more transparency will reward us public favor here. You want people to trust you, this is a chance. I was on the board meeting, I was at that board meeting beforehand. We've had over $200 million in surplus being sold, and that money can go a long way. It really can, with projects, with modernization, with clearing people's debt, with making change, genuine change. And diligence, consistency, and transparency will make the impact there. Nothing more and nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Past Chair, turn the meeting back over to you.
Okay. Oh, thank you, staff. Now we're going to have a presentation of the CPS Energy 2026 budget with Chad Hoopengarner. He's the VP of Financial Planning, Pricing, and Budget for CPS Energy.
All right, we on? All right. Let's see, just make sure I get my notes here. Excuse me. Okay, thank you for that introduction. It is very rare that people actually get my name right when they're introducing me on the first try, so thank you for that. Good morning, good to see you all again. It's been some time since I've been able to have a conversation with you. I am the Vice President of Financial Planning. That means I work with our CFO, Corey Kuczynski. He's on leave and wasn't able to be here, so he asked me to come and give you a sort of an overview of our FY26 budget. He has presented slides very similar to these to both our Board of Trustees and the Municipal Utility Committee over at the city. Before I get into the slides, I wanted to give you a little bit of context around our performance for FY25. That's the fiscal year that we just finished at the end of January. And actually, last Monday, Corey presented to our Board of Trustees sort of a recap presentation, so the financial results of FY25. And if you have the time to go and watch it, you can get the link off of our website. If you don't have that kind of time, which is not insignificant, you can open the presentation, just skim through the slides. But the major brushstrokes are we had a highly successful acquisition of some new generating assets. And I won't steal Elena's thunder. She's going to come and talk about a generation plan update here in an hour or so. Our O&M, our expenses came in a little bit higher than our original budget. That was predominantly related to the purchase of those assets. So if you buy some more plants, you're going to spend a little bit more, you're going to have a little more expense to support them. Capital was also over plan in part, to large part, because of the purchase of those assets, which were not contemplated in our plan, but also because we've seen pretty significant increases in the need to build transmission assets. So our transmission budget was pretty high. Overall, kind of where we ended the year was very sound financial health. We have our balanced score metric called fiscal resiliency, and that's a composition of several different factors, but we had strong debt service coverage. We had almost at plan debt capitalization, which is amazing given that we spent $800 million in debt on these new power plants, new to us power plants. And our liquidity and cash on hand was very strong as well. So we accomplished a lot last year, and that continuity kind of goes into FY26. So it's kind of important when it gets to the themes that are in this budget. Okay, so that's FY25. Did you have a question?
That's okay. Should I wait till the end?
Well, it's up to you. But yeah, why don't I go through the slides and then because I'm just going to hit the highlights of this stuff, and then y'all can probe and ask questions all you want. Okay, so FY25 was a really strong year. We cruise into FY26. The main theme is on continuity and continuation. There's no surprises in our budget. We are going to continue to spend money on the things that we have been spending money on. These are the things that we've been asked to do by the community. These are the things that we've committed that we would do. You know, we've tried to be very transparent about what our plans are and then executing against those plans. And so very high level summarized on the slide, we are going to continue to spend money on our generation plan that was approved by the board. We are going to continue to spend money on both transmission and distribution. That's capital and O&M. That's the expansion of infrastructure to make it more resilient. That's to support growth of our community and the broader ERCOT community. And then the last kind of major theme is around our technology investments. A part of our prior rate case was funding the ERP system replacement. So that's a major theme of our budget this coming year as well. Our capital plan, so the next two slides summarize our capital budget and then our O&M expense budget. Top down, you can see our capital budget for the year is $1.5 billion, and that sounds like a really large number. It is a really large number. Our plan for last year was a little below $1 billion, but then we spent a little over $1.7 billion when you factor in the additional power plants that we purchased. So with that context in mind, 1.5 doesn't look too big. Almost half of it, a little over 40%, is transmission and distribution infrastructure. It's resiliency, it's expanding substations, it's assets on the transmission side. I mentioned that we were over our capital plan last year, due in part to transmission growth. That's going to continue. That's a major theme happening in ERCOT right now. Next category is general customer growth. That's about 20% or $300 million. Extending service, new meters, serving new subdivisions. The next category, about a quarter of that $1.5 billion, is the generation plan. It's unit upgrades and overhauls. It's new projects, again, in support of our generation plan. A little less than 10% on technology and security. So this addresses physical risks, like fencing at some of our power plants. And it is also the capital side of the ERP program, okay? And then the last little bit is sort of support services. It's the overhead. It's the financial services. It's the legal services. We don't spend a lot of capital to support those areas. On the expense side, this is the story, okay? So $982 million is our full year budget for FY26. That's about 5% more than last year, so it is a year-over-year increase in O&M expenses. But they are consistent with the trends that we saw in FY25, okay? So we built our FY26 budget accordingly. Almost half of that is labor. Okay, so when I'm paid, when our employees are paid, it's not a capital item. Of course, that's an expense item. So salaries, wages, overtime, that's what's meant by other compensation, benefits, that's all in that bucket. So that's a fully loaded expense of wages and benefits for the workforce. A little less than a third is the generation fleet. So this is the expense side of the investments in our gen plan, right? This is overhauls and maintenance. When you do those types of activities, they're not capital. They don't have a long-term, impact. They're expense items that you put on your P&L as an expense. 10% is technology. That is partially ERP, but it's also cybersecurity initiatives. A little less than 10% on transmission and distribution. That's the $82 million. And so on the prior slide you saw in the capital plan, that's the big driver right at the very top, the 42%, that's transmission and distribution. Most of those investments are capitalized investments. And then on the expense side, it's much smaller. And then another amount for the shared services. So we have this big plan. We've got $1.5 billion in capital and almost $1 billion in O&M. We have a team within Corey Kuczynski's, financial services organization. We call them our debt management team. Their sole purpose is to optimize the financial tools that we have at our disposal to fund our business. They really have kind of three objectives, and that's representative of the three items on the slide. The first is to fund our capital plan. And so within FY26, we've got a plan for $1.5 billion in long-term debt, new money and refunding of interim short-term debt like commercial paper. The second objective they have is really to give us flexibility so we can be opportunistic, so that when a great deal like the plants last year comes along, we have the ability within our capital structure to pursue that and take advantage of that. They've got some maintenance around our commercial paper lines of credit that they're doing, so that's about $500 million. But that's not new debt. And then the third function that they have is to save us money by reworking our existing debt portfolio. And that's this third bullet, $3 billion. That sounds like a big number, but it's not $3 billion of additional debt. It's basically like refinancing your mortgage. If you've got a couple $100,000 mortgage at, 6% interest, and interest rates have gone down, you can go get a different mortgage of the same value at a lower interest rate, pay off the first mortgage. You're not in any more debt than you were before you did it, but your cost of your mortgage comes down, right? That's essentially what that is. So don't be scared by the big number. All in, they're looking at a budget that's like 10 to 80 million of savings. It really depends on the financial market circumstances when they go to the markets to issue long-term debt. But they have a great track record of saving our community money by being very stringent with our debt that's outstanding and refinancing it. Okay, and then my last slide before I pause for questions on any of it. This is sort of the 50,000-foot view of financial health that we expect as we get to the end of this current fiscal year. And just as a reminder, I think you know this, but our fiscal year starts on Feb 1. So we're about 2+ months into our fiscal year. We're just now starting to get line of sight into the results from the second month, right? So we're very early in our fiscal year. The top part is it's most of the components of our fiscal resiliency score. And I've got a couple of years of actuals, and then I think when we made this, we didn't have final FY25 results. So we have what was built into the budget ranges for FY25. We came within all of those ranges. And then you see the FY26 ranges. The way we define this metric, it's not just us internally saying, well, I'd like to achieve this amount of liquidity or this amount of leverage. It is through our partnership with the credit rating agencies that they signal to us through a sort of a collaborative conversation what represents sufficient financial health, okay? And so they tell us, and we sort of listen and look at our peers in the industry, and then we target, okay, I need debt coverage levels between 1.6 and 1.99. That's the target range. I think our actual value in the budget is 1.83 that we're targeting. Debt cap, that's the acceptable range. We're going to be bumping up to the higher end of that range, still acceptable. I think our actual target number is 64.7. That is an increase from FY25. So we ended FY25 at 61.8. So obviously 61.8 to 64.7, that is an increase. But that's consistent with the plans that we have laid out for the last several years, right? We have been very transparent about we're entering a period of high investment. We're going to invest in the generation plan. We're going to invest in the transmission grid. Now's when that is happening, right? Let's see, days cash on hand and liquidity on hand. We will be sufficiently liquid, and we'll end up within those ranges. And then you can see the capital and O&M. And then the last item on the page that is not on any of the other slides is our R&R fund additions. So to me, I look at that as sort of our piggy bank. Like at the end of the day, after we've paid our expenses, after we've covered our debt cost, after we've, a portion of that comes before we pay the city, but after we've paid the city, what is our total amount of R&R fund additions that go into our piggy bank to support the business, mostly capital, into the future? And you can see that number's going up. We were pretty far above plan last year, mostly due to the purchase of those assets. But we'll contribute almost $500 million to our R&R fund. That piggy bank, I mean, that's cash, and that helps with our leverage ratios, right? So anytime you go and purchase something on credit, whether it's a refrigerator or a car or a house, they run your credit. They want to know that you have sufficient income, sufficient cash to be able to pay and service that debt. Holding cash helps with our debt capitalization ratio and signals to the financial markets that we're in sufficient financial health. And the last comment that I'll make on our FY26 budget before I open it up to questions is, you'll notice I have not spoken about a rate increase at all. Let me give you a little context on why. Let's see, 3.5 years ago, we did our first rate case in almost a decade. And at the time, we said we should have been coming in more frequently. We are now going to come in every 2 years. We have this master plan going out many years, and we will be back every 2 years. That was 3.5 years ago. 2 years later, we came back about 1.5 years ago for our second rate increase. And if you're keeping track, that would mean in 6 months we would go for another rate increase. The FY26 budget does not have any impacts of a rate increase included in FY26. The budget results from FY25 and the way we've set the FY26 budget, it gives us flexibility around that rate plan. We're going to be watching it very closely this year. And as we get to the back end of summer, which is our peak period, we will reevaluate again our need for a rate increase, and then we'll be able to talk more about what we see happening in the near term after that. But again, FY26 doesn't have a rate increase in it. Okay, that's the end of my prepared remarks. And so let me pause there and see if there's any specific questions.
Thank you very much for that. I have 5 questions, so I want to be fair. Does anybody else have questions before I launch?
I think Peter put his hand up.
Peter, you want to go?
Dr. Cantu.
Hey, Peter.
Hey, Shad.
Good to
Great
see you.
presentation. First, I want to acknowledge that the assets have really been a benefit to this whole process and the surplus. And my question is based around the surplus, the 14% that goes to the city of San Antonio. Last year, they approved the process to where there's a certain percentage that they were willing to reinvest back into CPS. And can you explain that process and how much has already come back and how it's been applied? I know their goal, the intent was to minimize the need for a rate increase. And so just to put that in context of what you just shared about pushing back that potential for the rate increase, and how much is coming back, and is that really a factor to the decision-making process?
Yeah, very good question. Thanks for asking that question, Peter. Yeah, I think it was signed August, late July timeframe last year. So every year when the city sets their budget, they work with partners that are the drivers of all of their streams of revenue, whether it's property taxes or SAW city payment or CPS Energy city payment, to come up with their own estimate for their revenue forecast, right? Because that funds their budget. That includes, they work with us. They look at our budgeted numbers. They look at how firm the assumptions are that go into that, because they want to be able to present a figure coming from CPS Energy that is not too conservative and not too loose, right? They want to be able to rely on the dollars that come. Within that, they end up with sort of a sub-plan for city payment for our retail business and our wholesale business. As they near the end of the year, and this happened in like the October-November timeframe, we started having these conversations. They look at their year-to-date city payment coming from retail and from wholesale, and if it's above a certain amount above their plan, then they start contemplating providing some general fund dollars to us. And I try to be really careful about it. They're not giving us back city payment. They are giving us general fund dollars. We're obligated to pay city payment per our bond ordinances, and so we pay that. Once it's in their bank account, it is theirs to do with what they want. they have chosen to have this formula that says, if we're a certain amount above plan, we will calculate some and give dollars to CPS Energy. And then we use them for the benefit of the system. And there's language in the ordinance that says it's to the benefit of the system. And to the extent that helps defer or defray a rate increase, then it factors into the analysis and the question, the math, the arithmetic. Oh, and you asked specifically how much.
Yes, how much? And you're saying applied to, I know it's hard to define the impact based on how you apply it, but where is it applied in the budget?
So this past year, I think it was December we finalized it. It was 26 million of dollars that they provided to us. We're using those. It's not in the budget. Gee, is that right? Right. So it's that 26 million will be on top of the dollars that I just showed you, and they will be spent on infrastructure reclosers. That's been a big conversation that we've had with the community following some of the extreme weather events that we've had over the last few years. That gives us more finite control over the grid and turning on and off and sort of cycling outages. And then we have some dollars being spent on one of our older power plants we've had some outages with it, and so we're replacing a boiler tube section over the course of this year and next year. So that's what those dollars are going for.
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate the explanation.
Okay, Dr. Cantu, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. So I want to be sure I understand the bottom line correctly, the R&R fund addition. So what you're saying is that like fiscal year 25, so if you go on the plan, if the plan goes as planned, CPS would have 320 million cash on hand. After you've paid salaries, after you've done everything else that needed to be done for fiscal year 25. And so the same thing for 26. The plan would be that you would have almost 450 million on cash on hand. Am I understanding that correctly or not?
Very, very close.
Okay.
It's not the total cash on hand. It's the amount of cash added to the piggy bank. So the piggy bank already has dollars in it.
Right.
This is just how much in each fiscal year we're going to add to
Okay.
the R&R account.
And so then the piggy bank, where you're adding that cash to it, if it goes as planned, does that go right back into CPS plans, resilience, sustainability efforts? How is that going to be spent? And is that described on the budget?
Yeah, so we use a portion of our cash to fund our budget. We pay for the expenses, we pay for, the coverage of debt, we pay
Sure.
for city payment. We fund a large portion of our capital plan with cash. But we do not use the entirety of the piggy bank every year.
Okay.
It's sort of, I don't know, last in, first out, right? You're adding to the piggy bank, and then as you need cash, you're using it.
Okay.
But we do keep cash reserves so that we have financial flexibility.
Right.
And it really signals financial health, right? It's like I've got a savings account with some dollars in it, and my wife doesn't like it when it gets too low.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Okay. And then my final question would be, just to remind me, in terms of delinquent accounts, CPS, is it still somewhere around $1 million?
$1 billion, yeah.
$1 billion in delinquent accounts?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
That's what, yeah.
I thought you said liquid accounts,
$1 billion?
as in
No.
cash. No,
No,
it is not that.
no.
Yeah, great question. So at the peak, it was 208 million. That was past due accounts as of October 22,
Okay.
2022. We're at 135, right? 135 million. So
No.
it's come down by almost a third
Okay.
since then.
Okay.
And it's important to note, we have more customers on payment plans than ever before. And customers that are on payment plans, the success rate, that means once you go on a payment plan, do you get disconnected? The success rate is like 80%. And so a very small number, that's like among the best in the industry. It's never that high. So
Okay.
lots of success with AR. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chad, this is great. The new plant, unfortunately, I'm not as informed on that as I should be, so I apologize. But that acquisition brought in just capacity, or did it bring in customers with it?
Just capacity.
Just capacity. And so our growth is largely our population within our footprint? Or is our footprint change over time at all in terms of how we respond budget-wise?
Well, sort of. So our certificated operating area,
Yeah.
the boundaries don't really change, and so the population in our community is what drives, our need to expand infrastructure, whether it's transmission, distribution, grid infrastructure, or add capacity to serve them. Sometimes that infrastructure is located outside of our community, and so the assets that we purchased, there were a couple in Corpus Christi and one over in Laredo. We also have, as you all know, we have a partial ownership share in STP, which is not in our community. We also own, operate, and maintain transmission lines that are between here and STP, outside of our service territory.
Okay, so when the city annexes another part of the county or whatever, right, that becomes CPS territory, is that right, or not? Not necessarily?
Well, so good question. Some of the areas, so like Alamo Heights, if Alamo Heights were annexed, Alamo Heights is already CPS Energy customers,
I understand.
right? If they were annexed, they would just become City of San Antonio, residents. I think, are you referring kind of more on the fringes?
On the external
on the
part
exterior.
of the city footprint, right, where we
Yeah.
bring in a part of the county
Right.
that's not part of the city, but they annex it just to bring it into that fold.
I don't think that changes our certificated service area.
I see.
But
Okay.
I'll tell you, I'm not 100% sure on that. It's a good question.
Okay, so when you showed the capital and expense slides, I think it was like, 3 or 4 or something. Where are the changes? Are there any big changes year to year in that?
Yes.
In other words, have we
so-
shifted emphasis in any way? I think it's important that we get a feel for that.
There are a few changes that were known changes, like the technology investment. We've known that it was going to ramp up, and so that's an increase from last year. Another one is around the transmission budget. So within the 638, a little less than half of that, about 300 million, is the plan for transmission. Our actual transmission expenditures were about 150 last year. So that's a pretty big year-over-year increase.
And that's due to the new plant, largely, or reaction to?
No, that's due to growth in ERCOT and necessary investment at the state level in transmission investments. So we actually have some transmission constraints south of San Antonio, not due to anything that we have done right or wrong. It's a statewide grid management issue. And we are spending some dollars over the next several years to quickly build some transmission lines for ERCOT. But transmission is a unique animal because we don't go to our local regulator, the City of San Antonio, to regulate the portion of our rates that recovers the cost of transmission investments. That's the PUC, okay? And so I believe you're scheduled to hear more about that over the coming months because we are going to file a transmission filing rate case with the PUC this summer. And so that increase from about 150 million to about 300 million, that additional capital investment will be recovered through a rate case that we do with the PUC.
Rate case with the PUC, so when we sell our wholesale energy, that rate applies?
Not
I
wholesale
just don't want it
energy.
to be confused with the rate that we pay,
Part of the rate that you pay is to recover the cost of transmission investments that we made. But transmission is its own animal. So the way it works is there are transmission service providers all over the state. They make investments and they file rate cases with the PUC. And all of those investments are totaled into one big number. It's like $5 billion now per year of revenue requirements on transmission. And then based on your loads, your utilities, what they call load ratio share, that utility pays a portion of it and passes that through to customers. And so our load ratio share is a little less than 7%. So each year, we're responsible for paying about 7% of the total transmission costs in the state, and that gets built into the rates of our local customers.
Perfect, thank you. Switching a little bit, the customer and community engagement and shared services, it's 4%, it was 5% prior. Is that do you see, I don't remember the actual value last year. Could you go back one slide or forward, whichever?
Well, neither of these are last year values. This is capital.
Oh, I'm
about
sorry, you're
600
right,
million,
right.
And this
Yep.
one's 45
Yeah,
million.
that's the
O&M.
5% I remember. Okay, so how does that sit with respect to a benchmark, right? I want to make sure that we're calibrated in terms of San Antonio, but also our environment, right? Our neighbors or the state or even national, right? That we're putting the right amount of money into our customers. And I think that it's a great result that we have of that bad debt going down, right? That's fantastic, right? But I want to make sure that all the other surround of our customer engagement is healthy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Periodically, once a year, once every 2 years, we will look at a benchmark that's O&M per customer. And so we take that total amount, whatever kind of year we're looking at, but in this case, $982 million, and we divide that by the number of customers, and we get to $200 or $300 per customer, or $400, $500. I don't remember exactly what the numbers are. That is a benchmarkable number that there are companies that have that data point that we can compare against. And we generally compare very well. I will tell you, every utility is increasing, just because they're all experiencing the same industry trends that we are with the rapid growth and the need to invest. And so those dollars per customer are going up everywhere. I don't have anything readily available where I can show you, the most recent benchmarks that we've done, but we can certainly put that together. We just get that.
Okay. I didn't hear anything about the status of Erie, Winter Storm Erie, and all that impact that we had. And I understand it might be tied up in litigation still and so forth, but just curious about where that stands and from a financial impact perspective.
Yeah, so of course I will rely on my legal friends to provide an update on kind of the status of that. When we did the first rate case in 10 years, 3.5 years ago, we also sought and received approval for a regulatory asset for up to the full amount of cost from the fuel bills that we received right after Uri. That's going to be those are a balance sheet item. They're not a fuel expense that you would see. And what has been paid out already is roughly 2/3 of that. The rest of it is still in litigation that our legal team can provide an update on. But that was built into bills starting about 3.5 years ago. It was about $1.20 or so per month. Yep. Thank you for the questions. Very insightful, everyone. Yes.
Thanks for the presentation. Do you anticipate having to revise any of your forecasts based on bills being floated in the current legislative session? And also, what's been the impact of potential loss of grants from like the Inflation Reduction Act or anything from the federal level?
Yeah, good question. Yes, we're looking at legislation very closely. SB 6 is one of them. That's a large customer bill. You can go look it up. It's at the state level, it is their attempt to accommodate for the growth of large loads while not putting the service of the average Texan at risk. So we do keep our eye on that. Let's see, what else? What was the second part of your question? Grants and Inflation Reduction Act. Yeah, there's some uncertainty there. It appears to be everything is going to be how we expected. Like we will get contributions from the government for the grants that we have participated in, but it's something that we have to monitor because we get mixed messages from time to time. I believe the most recent is that we are going to get the reimbursement. Yeah.
Thank you, Chad. I got a few questions. One is, I'm typically used to seeing a multi-year capital plan. This is similar to what Tom was asking about. And I know these transmission projects take 4 to 5 years from inception to completion. So I would expect that number to be increased. I'm assuming that you have a multi-year capital plan. I don't know if it's based on Vision 2027 or if it has aspects of Horizon 2050 in it. I don't know. But can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, we do. Our plan actually goes out 25 years, but it's kind of the cone of uncertainty of a hurricane, right? Like it's a much better forecast, right? You know, in the immediate term. The 5-year capital plan, so the prior slide, 1.5 billion for FY26. For 5 years, it's a little over 6.5 billion. And there's puts and takes across the different categories. Transmission is a big element of it. It's about 300 million a year, 200 to 300 million a year. And it's fluctuating. It fluctuates because it fluctuates every time we redo our budget, because some large customers signal that they're coming to our territory, others signal that they're slowing down what they had previously told us. And then at the state level, the PUC makes determinations that drive, you know, how much we're going to invest. So it changes from year to year, but right now on the transmission side, we've got about, I don't know, 1.2 to 1.5, 1.7.
Billion?
Yeah, billion in the 5-year projection.
Okay. All right. And then the other thing is, I think the South Texas assets were funded with commercial paper, and I know you have a note in here about that liquidity and the change of that. And the other thing is, I think our debt is about $8 billion, if I remember right. I don't know if that's short term, I can't recall. So with respect to rolling that over into debt, you also have a number in here, opportunities to save money at $3.05 billion. I don't think that's 1 year. I think that's a multi-year type of number, right? At 3.05.
Okay, so let me take questions in turn. Yeah. So first, yeah, I believe we funded the the CCL plants, the Corpus Christi and Laredo plants, with commercial paper initially, but we took that loan last year. Is that right, Gotham? Yeah. So that is already. Yeah. So that's already taken into long-term debt. Your second question was?
And then
Remind
on
me. The $3 billion.
Yeah, $3 billion. Our overall debt is about $8 billion, I think, and
yeah, that
you
is
have a
about
$3.05 billion savings.
Yeah, that's a good question. Gotham, do you? Okay, so Gotham is, well, formerly over our debt management group. Our debt management team is at a conference today, so I phoned a friend and had him come.
Yeah, Gotham String up here, like Chad said. Good afternoon. Yeah, so on the $3 billion of opportunities to save, that authorization is technically over 1 year, but there's opportunities. This is a recurring kind of thing that we bring up to our board and to our council. You know, it's obviously all market driven, and so to the extent that there's opportunities to refinance, obviously, as you've probably seen in the news, lots of volatility in the markets, and so this may not come to fruition, but it is technically an authorization for a 1-year period. To the extent that the opportunities present themselves, we'll take advantage of the refinancing opportunities. And again, if it's something that, as we get close to that authorization expiring, then that's something that the team will do. We'll come back to the board and we'll seek approval for those particular series of debt that you see on the slide there.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Sure, no problem.
I believe that was the end of the questions from, okay, good. We're going to move things around a little bit. Our next presentation will begin for the power generation update. Elena Ball, the Chief Strategy Officer, will be presenting this.
And as Elena comes to the podium, we just wanted to recognize that Chair Dr. Romero is with us today. Thank you, Chair, for attending.
Good morning. I am Elena Ball. I'm here to present an update on our generation plan. You heard some of those elements in Chad's presentation. And I have a few slides to share. These are our slides that we've shared with our committees as well as our board. And so please feel free to stop me. Don't feel like you need to wait till the end to ask questions. So first up, want to share kind of what's going on in ERCOT and what's really going on in the country and arguably in the world. We are seeing significant growth in the power sector. You will hear a lot about data center growth, and certainly that's a key component, but we're seeing growth in many different sectors. We are seeing reshoring and expansion of manufacturing and industrial growth in the state and in the nation. We also are seeing continued electrification. We at CPS Energy, obviously have a focus around reducing our impact on the environment. We're also seeing a lot of industrial customers and other industries that are looking at electrification as a means to clean up their value chains. Electrification of transportation continues to grow as well. So all of that really builds a compelling picture of this is a great time to be in an electric utility, but it also presents a tremendous amount of challenge. So as a reminder, we sit inside of an ISO, an RTO kind of a market called ERCOT. ERCOT provides reliability services, transmission services, and convenes a market that covers approximately 90% of the population of the state of Texas. Right now, ERCOT has its maximum load at right around 85,000 gigawatts. Megawatts. I'll talk in gigawatts and just say 85 gigawatts. And that has been where we typically peak in the summertime. Load forecasts in ERCOT have been as high as 150 gigs by the year 2030. So we're talking roughly 4.5 years from now. So considerable growth. The curve of the growth is really unlike any of us who've been in the industry a long time have seen. There is quite a bit of uncertainty in load forecasts, not only in Texas, but also throughout the United States, because of certainly I think large loads have been contributing to this. Lots of hyperscalers are seeking any place they can connect to get speed to market because of the rapid growth of data centers and artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so as a result, many of these hyperscalers and in some other entities may put their load requests into multiple queues, into multiple lines, both within a state and maybe in other parts of the United States. Senate Bill 6 was referenced relative to some large load reform. One of the elements of Senate Bill 6 ultimately is striving at creating some structure around entering queues that may clean up and improve load forecast accuracy. And then if you all have read reports relative to the power generation side of the equation, with all of this growth, there's clearly a need to build additional transmission, but there's also a need to have additional generation. And so ERCOT publishes a monthly and a seasonal reliability report, which speaks to what are the loads that are expected, what are the resources that are expected, and they look at something called resource adequacy, or basically how much additional supply do they have over demand. Current forecasts show that the reserve adequacy is going to rapidly decline over the next 3 years in the state. So these are all some interesting challenges and backdrops for us. Just a reminder, when we as an organization adopted our most recent generation plan, of which we're executing right now, we went through a really robust process, engaged the community. Many of you in this room, many of you who are watching, some who are in our audience, were part of that process. And we went through a really comprehensive review of the available technologies, our expected needs, our goals as an organization, and adopted, with the help of the Rate Advisory Committee, a generation plan that has some key elements. We are on a path and are committed to continue to exit coal, to retire or convert our coal plants. We have aging gas units. These are steam units. We just last week retired 2 of our 3 Bronick units. These are 60-year-old plants. They have earned their AARP card. It's time for them to go enjoy their retirement and be replaced with newer, cleaner, more efficient technologies. And so we're going to continue to retire aging gas plants as part of this plan. And then we have a number of resource additions in the form of solar, wind, storage, and natural gas. So the intent today is just give you all an update on where we are with this plan. Yes, sir.
So with STEP, you were treating energy efficiency and demand-side management as essentially an additional fuel, avoiding needing to build a power plant. Is that still part of your future planning, that not just surging forward and building more capacity, but trying to hedge against or reduce demand?
That's a terrific question. Absolutely. We're about to round year 3 of a 5-year STEP program, and we'll be coming to you all in the fall as we round out program year 3, which will conclude at the end of July. We'll go through and create our numbers and come back with you all with an update. But we're striving to save over 400 megawatts with this 5-year program, and we're about halfway there. And we continue to invest in energy efficiency. We continue to invest in demand response, also rebating of more efficient technologies, helping customers, replace technologies that were more energy intensive with less energy intensive. And then we have a number of programs like weatherization and other low and moderate income programs where we're really hoping to do several things. One, to the great question, offset some demand and prevent needing to build physical assets to supply that energy. But we also want to help our customers save energy. We have a lot of customers, roughly 20%, that are at or below the federal poverty line. And so to the degree that we can drive out the energy, not need to build the asset, help our customers save energy, and do so in a manner that's lower cost than the alternatives. It helps the environment, it helps our leverage, and it helps customers, and in particular, customers who may be struggling with arrearage or difficulty paying their energy bills. So we are very committed to that program, and we are on track with our goals for the 5 years.
Thanks. Did you say you're going to plan to present something around July?
We do. So the STEP program is actually in alignment with the city's fiscal year, and so we track our progress on that timeline. So our program year end 3, our program year end 3 occurs at the end of July. We do have outside folks to come and check our math. They go through all our numbers. We get independent validation. So once we get through all of that, we will go back to our board, to the city council, and to this body, to you all, to share the results of our progress and share our remaining 2 years in this program. But we absolutely are. The reason you don't see it here, it's the intent behind this presentation is really to talk about the supply side of resources. But to your question, when we view all of this work, we view it as kind of integrated planning for the organization. Okay, so terrific question.
May I? Question?
Yes, of course.
So I have a bit of a question, concern, and it's in reference to the aftermath of Winter Storm Uri, that after that happened, at least a lot of people, my family, friends, etc., since there was a power outage in a lot of areas, after that, a lot of us opted for gas-powered stoves just because you couldn't even cook at that time. And I see there that you're retiring gas units, but then you're also adding gas units. So I'm wondering if that is part of the coal plant conversion.
One of them is. I didn't mean to cut you off. Have you completed your question? Okay.
Well, yes, I was just wondering because I see that all the new development is all electric based. And I'm wondering if that is, I don't know, a bit problematic. If there's another instance like Uri that all the power shut down, then you don't have an ability to cook anything or even warm anything up in those conditions.
Well, thanks for your question. I'll try to make sure I share thoughts on each piece. So on the power supply side, before I even say that, the first thing I would say is Uri, we are committed as an organization to never have a Uri-like event again. We do sit with a larger system, and the larger system ultimately decides when we need to turn power off. But we're doing our part, and Uri was tragic. Over 250 Texans lost their lives in that storm. The most gut-wrenching for me, there was an 11-year-old boy north of Houston who froze to death in his bed. So your comments about Uri are spot on. And as we've reframed our strategy and focused on reliability, affordability, and clean energy, we want to double down and make sure that folks know we take our reliability commitment seriously. And so Specific to the coal units and the conversion, one of our coal units, Spruce 1, is fully depreciated. It's at end of life, and we do intend to retire Spruce 1. Spruce 2 is a younger plant, and it is coal burning. We do intend to convert that to natural gas, and we intend to run that for its full useful life. We've run the numbers. It's economically smart. It also sits in a really important part of our system, so it really does support reliability. In the retirement of the gas units and adding gas units, the units that we're retiring, such as the Bronick units, when you look at their thermal efficiency, they're about 35 to 40% of the energy that comes in gets sent out as electricity. The newer combined cycle units, for example, are more in the 60%, 60 to 65%. So that means you're getting more bang for your buck out of the plants, you're having less emissions, and it's lower cost. We're also adding peaking units. These are effectively jet engines that we connect up to a generator. They can start in 7 minutes, and they can come off in 7 minutes. And they're about as efficient as those old gas units. They have a very good conversion rate, but they don't. They're just much more responsive. So they can get up when we need them, get out when we don't, and they're not producing emissions when the market doesn't need them. Specific to the gas and electric question on homes, we can't tell developers how to build their subdivisions, but I will tell you, as we study homes that have both combined electric and natural gas, homes like homes, like consumption patterns, homes that have natural gas have about a 25% lower bill. And so there is, to your point, during an extreme weather event, whether that's a thunderstorm causing an outage or a cold snap, you do have that alternate supply, but also there's a real economic reason for having combined electric and gas, and we're going to continue to support both sides of our business and our customers. So hopefully I answered the pieces of your question. Did I miss anything?
No, that was just, in essence, I was trying to figure out if the retiring was being made up for elsewhere.
It is. So this is an eye chart. If I'm an engineer, and so if we don't show you a graph with tiny font and a bunch of numbers, they take our degree back. So that's what this slide is for. I'm just teasing. It's in your packet. I won't go through it all. But this is a graph that we put together that speaks to where we were in 2023, and then the items on the bottom are the units that we intend to retire over the next several years. And then on the top, the blue, are the resources that we are planning to add. One thing I will caveat all of this is to say that we have that generation plan. We have the feedback from the community on how we wanted to approach resources. We are every day looking in the market. We're every day thinking about the plans that we have and are working to find ways to lower the cost of that overall plan. So if we can find something that meets the needs of the plan, and quite honestly, Corpus Christi and Laredo were a great example. I had the fortune of being able to lead that great team who helped. We got through that transaction. It took the place of, those assets took the place of planned additions that we were going to build, and I'll show you the numbers in a minute, and accelerated those assets into our portfolio, which is helping us financially. But it also was lower cost, and so. While we have our stated plans, we're going to continually be looking at how can we do this in a more cost-effective manner. So for the generation plan, this is a little bit of a chart that shows, based on our generation plan where we're at, generally we are ahead of the schedule. We have 730 megawatts of solar. We're about 2/3 of our way to meeting the goals under our plan. Wind, we've only struck on one wind deal, but we're out in the market looking at wind. We want to make sure that we've already got a lot of wind in our portfolio, and so we want to make sure that if we're adding wind, it's really bringing down those costs. And there are a lot of repowers that are going on where wind developers are putting in higher efficiency or higher output wind turbines, so we're also watching for some of the contracts that we've had for a while and others and looking for those opportunities. Storage, we're about halfway to our storage goals. Many of those storage contracts are going to be coming into play this coming year. And then, as mentioned, with the addition of the 1,710 megawatts of natural gas, we're about 3/4 of our way to getting the gas resources that, again, will replace some of the capacity that we have retiring. This speaks to the decision that we made that under the leadership of Rudy and our board that allowed us to move forward with acquiring assets versus building them. So in our generation plan, we had expected to build gas capacity, a lot of it here in this community. We still have build in our plan, but we were approached by brokers that several of us know in New York, and they said, we're opening a process. It's going to be very competitive, but would CPS be interested in participate? And so we did over the course of a few months and a very busy Christmas holiday. I don't know, Gotham's still in here, and Chad, but we spent a lot of quality time over the holidays with this. But we competed and were able to win, actually, quite against a number of other larger utilities, investor-owned utilities, some strategic purchasers, financial, private equity. We had a lot of different people in the process, and I'm so darn proud of this team. I hope you guys know what smart and hardworking people you have here. I get to tell the story up here, but there's so many good people who pulled it together, and we turned what was going to be a $1.8 billion construction activity into a $785 million purchase. Assets now, no construction risk, brought the assets forward so we could earn this additional wholesale early, help pay off the plants, and help keep bills low. And then similarly, what we modeled in our solar and wind, as we went to market, we found about an 8% savings. That varies. I do think the IRA and what happens there will have an impact on forward contract prices and other things, tariffs and other things. But at the time that we got into the market, we saw favorable pricing. So we're really happy that we're making good progress in this space. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation so far, Elena.
Yes, sir.
That was a great move, obviously, with the natural gas assets. During the time on the rack, one of the things that we were looking at was that whole transition being a bridge, right? And I know part of the conversation was being cautious and investing too much into the solar, too much into the wind, but keeping the diversity. Right? And I think that's what you've been able to do. And I think right now, even more so with the capacity demand on the grid. With our aging units, and I shared this in our technology committee, the Texas Energy Fund, I know that it's geared toward new investments. Is there any movement, or do you see the value in trying to lobby for those funds to be applied toward the maintenance of our current units to keep them, and seeing the value of maintaining the dispatchable units that we do have and taking that load off of us having to maintain?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think the continuation of a life around Spruce 2, for example, is a really smart decision to repower with gas because of that very point that you're raising. Having that capacity is really helpful. We've retired 2 of the 3 Browning units. ERCOT asked us to hold on and run 1, and effectively what's happening is, the whole market's going to pick up those costs. So that's really the vehicle they have, that the market has to signal when a reliability need exists. The TEF, the spirit of the TEF was really, as I've visited and watched the program, is about adding incremental capacity. The need that the legislature is trying to solve is that we're at 85, we could go to 130 or 150 in 4.5 years. And even if we issued all the orders today, getting that much turbo machinery or reciprocating engines or solar, it's challenging. And so, so I can say, from my perspective, as we update and continue to look at our gen plan, we're going to look at all of our assets and say, what's the most economic thing for our customers, and how do we make sure that we have enough dispatchable, and that includes storage and other technologies to protect our customers during extreme weather events. But I don't believe that the TEF conversation is in any way focused on existing assets. Now, that could change. I don't know if I'm looking to see if I have any of my legislative folks in the room. They can correct me later, so I'll let you know if I get corrected, okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh, Gabe wants to visit. TEF, could TEF apply to helping with maintenance of existing assets?
It does not. You're correct, Elena. It does not. It's specifically intended for new generation. And we did submit an application. We were not selected, but we've seen others come off the list, so it may happen.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm almost done, and I know that y'all have a lot of other things you want to visit about, but just wanted to kind of also highlight a couple of things. So when I started almost 2 years ago now, gosh, time flies when you have fun, we were NRG was in the process of selling their share of our co-owned nuclear plant with Austin Energy to Constellation. And I won't go into any legal stuff, but we had some rights, and we fully executed our rights and worked with them as a partner. Through that proceeding, we were able to pick up a 200 megawatt power purchase agreement for Constellation. And they agreed to sell us 2% of their ownership share, which will make us, and we're on the 1 yard line getting that 2%. We have a lot of regulatory processes you have to go to effectuate those, but that will make us effectively co-owners in the project with Constellation, with both of us having 42%, which has a lot of really advantageous benefits. But also, it's another 50 plus megawatts of carbon-free energy that is absolutely dispatchable, reliable power. Community solar, we are in negotiations right now for community solar, hope to be through that very soon. Wind, again, we've got some additional wind in negotiations. We are in the process of acquiring key equipment and services for peaking units. I mentioned those units that can get in, help with prices, and then get out. Prices or reliability. That's the kind of technology that we're seeking. We're not looking at building, large machines here in the region. And then we are very active on the Spruce 2 conversion to natural gas. We want to make sure that as Spruce 2 comes off of coal very quickly, we convert it onto gas and don't miss a beat. So we've got a lot of pre-work in getting that unit ready for that conversion. And then we're continuing with our unit retirements, as noted last week, with our two Browning retirements. So making really good progress. It's a team effort. It touches absolutely every part of the company. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about carbon. And so here we are in 2025. When you look at our carbon intensity, this is basically looking at all of the assets that we either operate, contract for, or the power that we purchase from the grid, because the power we purchase from the grid has a carbon intensity footprint. Where are we today in the amount of carbon that's emitted on a megawatt hour basis? And you can see we're in it right now in 2025. We're over 800 pounds of CO2 per megawatt hour. As these retirements occur, and the coal retirements make big bites in that intensity, you'll see the big drops. And then as we continue to transition, our carbon intensity is going to continue to go down. Again, as we make further updates to our gen plan, this is going to continue to be a really important thing that we look at and think about. I think I'm probably getting along on time, but I will touch on a couple of things that are headwinds. I belabored the load growth, but the transmission constraints are also key. Our generation can build very quickly, but our transmission system has to also build very quickly. We do have a number of constraints south of us that we have a number of projects on. Part of the reason Bronick 3 was contracted for was to maintain reliability. We're getting in that unit. We're finding things that need to get repaired, so it's going to take some time. We'll keep everyone briefed on that. And then we have a lot of transmission to build down south, and that also requires supplies, people, and it's going to take some time. But the transmission constraints are just going to continue to grow. There is an ongoing discussion right now at the state. We expect possible action in May for establishing an ultra-high voltage network in the state. The highest voltage that we operate at now, and we are operators at it, is 345,000 volts. The state is considering a 765 kV, which is only available in certain parts of the United States and world. So that'll be interesting. We will have a part of that project if it does move forward. Tailwinds, I think we've touched on a lot of them. Good team, got great financials, good access to capital. And so, we're really confident in our ability to execute what we have in front of us. And I think we've got a smart team and great leadership and support to allow us to be agile and changing and adjusting the plan when we see opportunities to do things better. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Elena. It was very informative.
Elaine,
Oh, we have some questions.
yes, so thank you for your presentation. Can you go back to the slide on carbon intensity, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you for putting this up here. And, obviously the issue of the CPS obligations under the cap, an interim obligation is reducing the carbon intensity, but the overall goal has to be total emissions reduction. So total greenhouse gas emissions have to come down. What may be lost here is that the intensity can go down, which is good, but our emissions could still go up. Okay, and my concern here is that we're not being totally transparent about how the generation plan may actually have no carbon benefit if we're continuing to expand fossil fuels and our share of zero carbon energy doesn't actually go up as fast as it needs to. So that's my concern. If you go to the slide, please, that is the timeline for the generation.
That one?
Yes. So you have here a few little bubbles that say dispatchable resources and, at 2030 dispatchable resources, 2020. So can you talk about what specifically those resources would be? And is there any consideration of zero carbon dispatchable resources aside from the South Texas project?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I'm providing sort of a near-term look on our generation plan. If you look at our full generation plan, there are planned additions of non-emitting resources, some of which are, they're firm resources. Examples that, and we're going to watch technology costs because the reason we're not buying them right now is they're just expensive or not commercially available. But some of the things that we are going to look at are geothermal, right? Geothermal is a resource that it's probably likely going to be along the border of the southern United States based on the temperature of rock formations in just geology. Small modular nuclear technology. In fact, Rudy just testified at the Senate this week about that technology, and we're going to continue to watch, advanced nuclear technology. But here in the plan, our dispatchable storage is one of the resources. Right now, we're predominantly focused on lithium technology for that battery storage, which is listed up here in addition to the gas dispatchable resource that I talked about, the quick start units. But we are visiting with a number of providers of long duration energy storage, new technology that is becoming commercially available that are well beyond 4 hours. And I have an entire 70-page report of long duration energy storage technologies. If you're interested, this is what I read at night because I'm a nerd. But there's a lot of really exciting chemistries out there. And so, kind of that ongoing optimization of the plan. It's optimization for cost, but it's also optimization to see what new types of technology there are. And I got to go back to STEP. As we get more large loads in our area, we're leaning in on them and saying, if you're bringing backup generation, let's figure out how we can use that during times of tight grid conditions so that we don't have to build assets for those tight periods. So lots of things, but to be specific, the dispatchable resources that are up there are natural gas peaking units and storage, dispatchable storage, right now we're predominantly seeing lithium 2 and 4 hour duration storage as the most economic storage mechanism. And we've got, like I said, 540 under contract. We're going to double that.
Thank you. A couple more things. So I would like to see, again, because you mentioned STEP, I would like to see that conservation and efficiency to be incorporated as, as Aaron mentioned earlier, it needs to be incorporated as part of a pseudo generation, right? Demand management, efficiency, et cetera. Because as you stated at the beginning, the pressure for increased growth, I don't see a way that we can meet the climate goals in addition to satisfying whatever potential future demand, and the costs associated with, new generation and new technologies. As far as dispatchable zero carbon, I'd love to see the report that you mentioned, and I raise you another report that I just read, okay, which is from an independent research organization called PSE, and they have done a study specific to Texas that is focused on converting aging natural gas units, which obviously is relevant to our situation, converting those to thermal storage units. This is attractive not only because the infrastructure capital costs would be reduced in comparison to building a whole new unit, but it also means that we can make non-dispatchable renewable generation dispatchable. So I'd be happy to share that with you so we can talk further. And thank you again. That's all my comments.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
And please do share that report. I will. I'm friends with the head of the Long Duration Energy, or the Energy Storage Council globally, and so this is a fantastic time for us to be thinking about long duration energy storage, of which thermal is one component, right? It's one type of technology. So would love that, and we wholeheartedly agree that reutilizing the electrical interconnections of these large machines that we're retiring is absolutely prudent. And historically, I think we viewed this as, well, we're just going to find the lowest cost of electricity wherever. But more and more, as we're seeing transmission constraints, we're doubling down on how can we help bring these resources to the interconnections that are going to become vacated as we retire these plants. So I really appreciate the very thoughtful question.
Elena, I believe Tom had a question.
Yeah, this is a little bit of multi-part, but it kind of follows on Julian's. Is it would be really useful to see, or at least have you describe your mix over time, and not just the next 2 years, but over time, where you see CPS landing way out there in time in terms of a mix of between gas, coal, all the different renewable types, because that evolution, I think, goes to that, right? And where you're putting your attention, small nuclear or what have you, for those smaller units. And then the second part of my question, with the ERCOT forecast that's out there, very, very aggressive growth, right? And I know supply line has a number of constraints, both in transmission and generation. And I'm wondering if there's discussion with some of these large demand sinks, like a lot of our data center customers that are coming into South Texas, whether there's localized smaller unit generation such that you'd avoid the transmission, and how that plays. And really it goes back to Julian's question about how we manage our carbon footprint against that kind of deployment of smaller plants that are somewhat privatized.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the complex.
No, it's a terrific question. Love the first question relative to show our energy mix evolution over time. We absolutely have that. We didn't put in this, and like Chad said, I think I got to kind of find a different acronym, but the cone of uncertainty. It's not a hurricane coming. We got this, okay? But his point is right. As you get further out, we're putting we're putting in resources we think are going to become commercially viable, right? And so, but we absolutely have that and would love to share that. And if you're interested, there's some fantastic work about global energy change that has that same perspective around nations, states, and really shows carbon evolution over time in the world. So if y'all are interested in that level of analysis, I'd be happy to share that.
But would be useful for that time,
Absolutely.
that cone of uncertainty or whatever,
We've got it.
is to understand why you're putting bets in various places, right?
Yeah.
Because as we have dialogues with people out there, it'd be interesting to kind of communicate that perspective
Yeah.
of why that emphasis, not just where it is, but why.
Right. No, that would be terrific, and we'd be happy to. We've got it out to 2050, and we're guided by reliability. We have a reserve margin that we keep above our load projections. We're guided by affordability, ultimately trying to solve for lowest cost resources and our carbon goals. That's what guides our planning. And then go ahead.
The second part was about with a large demand out there from data centers and so forth, kind of, I guess, really, what's the strategy of managing that, right? Are we going to respond with incremental capacity, or are we going to deploy that in more of their local space?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're approaching it in kind of two big areas. We're working on bridging solutions, and every day, yesterday I was with 3 different major hyperscalers, that are building all over the world. We're working to bridge power to get them what they need for a short period of time until our electric system can catch up and provide them long-term power. But your comment about bringing their own generation, bringing low-carbon generation, maybe providing their own generation in perpetuity, all of the above is happening. And so I'm under NDA with all of them, so I can't talk about specific projects, but we're in discussions with everything from small plants to fuel cells to unique gas solutions to flexible interconnections to demand response during peak, you name it. We're trying to solve immediate, near-term, and long-term supply for the customers that are coming in. So, terrific question. Oh, go ahead.
We have a question from
I was hearing the Oscars music pulled me off. Somebody's about to hook me.
Christopher from Quadrant 1 has a question.
I'll try to make it quick. We've touched a little bit on this, and I guess this is a question in terms of partnership with the city and other public entities in terms of immediate to near term this summer.
Yeah.
I think about the last few summers, and I think about a Winter Storm Uri event that happens in, say, July during a major extreme heat event. There has been a great deal of new research coming out in the literature on extreme heat, which is very helpful, and unfortunately a lot of it is very concerning. There was one study that looked at what an extreme heat event would look like in, say, Detroit, Atlanta, or Phoenix, and in Phoenix, if it happened even during a known heat event and they lost power for multiple days, upwards of 50% or more of the city would need acute medical attention. Now, we're not quite as hot as them, but we're certainly in the lower tier here in the latitudes. Any thoughts? CPS has certainly worked very hard to do as much as they possibly can on resiliency. But as you point out, we're still part of the ERCOT system. So if ERCOT had some cascading problem that required maybe a couple of days worth of rolling blackouts in the summer, what kind of information can we share through our networks here in the community to help people prepare for that, and what does that look like in terms of communicating with the city and other agencies?
Yeah, great question on preparation. Just like we all do ahead of hurricane season or winter season, we encourage all of our customers to develop their own home prep pack, right? Make sure that you know how you're going to charge your devices. Make sure you've got your emergency supplies, water, et cetera. I will tell you, I'm going to talk a little, I'm an operations person, so forgive me if I'm getting too nerdy, but we absolutely coordinate. Anytime there's a tight grid condition, we are in active communication with the Emergency Operations Center, the EOC, which connects all of the entities in the region. So we're really tightly coordinated during any kind of emergency or even planned, large events such as maybe like the Final Four. So we're always like in lock partnership. Should there be a need for rotating outages that ERCOT would call, again, CPS does not, we don't call this. We learned a lot from Uri. We make sure we're very focused on making sure we know where critical customers are. We're very, customers that have in-home health equipment, et cetera, making sure that the critical services in our region are electrified and provided power. Additionally, we went through a very focused effort to look at our load shed protocols and ensure that we're able to rotate folks for short periods of time so that nobody's riding the whole thing, right? You're just getting intermittent interruptions. So I have seen a lot, so I never say that nothing can happen and we've got this covered, but I do think we've taken a lot of good steps to be prepared. But we're gonna be in a continual learning mode around how can we even get better. So thank you for the questions. And we will get back with you on the actions and the commitments that we have for you.
Okay, we're kind of running out of time. Does anyone have any questions additionally? Elena, thank you for that presentation.
Thank you so much, Elena.
Staff, do we have time for real quick 2 minutes worth of new business or not? No. Okay, our time is over. No new business. I again want to thank everybody for attending, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.